Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Investment Talks with Harmony. This is episode 4 in the series, and this is the one that you don't want to miss. From starting out in a commission based job, feeling stuck working for someone else, to taking bold actions by investing in himself and jumping straight into the world of doing fixer uppers in his mid 20s. He has built his career on risk, resilience, and relentless passion. Our guest today is Mr. Brandon Foster, who has been investing in real estate for last several years and is a full-time real estate investor for the last 2 years. He's a master of multiple trades, straight from flipping, doing burrs, buying rental properties, to student rentals. He has done it all. A major chunk of his business these days is flipping houses. But here's the kicker: flipping wasn't even part of his original plan. In this episode, we will uncover how he stumbled into the flipping world and then kind of worked his way to build a life that he loves. If you ever wondered what it takes to leave your 9 to 5 and work for yourself, create a business around flipping houses, this is the episode for you. Let's dive right in. Today, we have Mr. Brandon Foster from Foster Properties. Thank you so much, Brandon, for taking the time to accept the invite and welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good, thanks. Yeah, it's been a while since we've talked. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, definitely. So, just to give a brief overview, like I know you live south from Ottawa near Kemptville, right?
Yep,
And yeah, you focus full time on real estate these days. I think you have been doing it for like more than 2 years now.
yep. So we've been full time, like you said, about 2 years now. But we've been
Amazing.
investing in real estate for almost 8 years now, which is crazy. We'll have another round of renewals coming up. That's kind of how I judge my how long I've been investing in real estate. Every 5 years, you get that reminder. But
That's how you
yeah,
track it. Yeah.
it's definitely been interesting with the ups and downs, but everything's just been going like straight up, it feels like since we started.
Amazing. So quite a journey, like 8 years. It's quite a lot. If you don't mind me asking, like how old were you when you started investing in real estate and with all this stuff?
Yeah, so I'm turning 32 at the end of the month. So I was born the day before April Fool's. So luckily didn't fall on that one. Um, so we'd be early 20s, me and my wife. So we lived in Ottawa, decided
Amazing.
to buy a duplex in Brockville because it was just too expensive, we thought, in Ottawa. So why not move
hmm
out to Brockville, essentially get two
Yeah.
houses for the price of one. And then
Okay.
from there, that's how we started. Renovated one side, lived in the other, rented it out. That covered a majority of our expenses and allowed us to save, that $1,000 a month we were spending in rent in Ottawa every month. And it just snowballed.
Amazing. So you already knew that you wanted to get like a duplex where you pay your expenses are paid by the tenants, and you already had that goal when you bought that property.
Yeah. So I started to, I was working in the trades, not really making what I thought I was worth. I was promised to go to school, didn't really happen. And then I started reading a bunch of financial books,
Right.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all those classics. And then from there, that's kind of what, flipped a switch in my brain and said, maybe as I build up more skills and experience in my job, I can also do another job on the side that's commission based. That's when I got into personal finance. And then started looking into rental properties to help get my expenses down. If I can't get my income up right away, at least I can look at options to help reduce my expenses so I have more money to invest in my business and real estate.
Amazing. So that's hats off to you because like early 20s you had that mindset, And like people these days, like young people, they don't even start thinking about financial literacy, like personal finance. Part of it is because they don't teach that also in their schools and part of the education. But hats off to you that you had that mindset. You took time to do the self improvement and work on yourself, focus on your goals, think about the future, think what you want to do. So was there any other external influence on this, like from your parents or relatives, or I don't know, social media was not that popular at that time, but it still was there. But what got you into reading like those kind of books, and what made your brain uh, go in that direction?
Yeah, another big thing too was I wasn't super enjoying where I was working. You
Right,
know, you get tired of the job, you get tired of the people bickering. So that was a big motivator too, and that really pushed me to start reading about the personal finance. One day I could be my own boss and
right.
pick who I want to work with. So that was a huge motivator. Um, but yeah, I mean, there wasn't necessarily one thing that kind of made me look into it. It's just one of those things that you start looking into it and then you go down like a rabbit hole. Next thing you know, you're reading all these books, I didn't usually read, and then I'm listening to Bigger Pockets. I'm always
Hmm.
have that on the background when I'm driving or like at the gym or something.
Yeah,
Um,
they're
and
amazing.
then, yeah, once you get started, it's kind of addicting. It's like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? And then you realize a lot of the stuff that you're learning or listening to is actually
Mhm.
US based. So you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm just gonna buy this house, 1031 exchange it. It's gonna be great. And then you start talking to like local agents and stuff. They're like, you're gonna what? Like, oh, I never heard of this. Then
No
I
one
think
understands.
I've found this strategy that people don't know about. And then you find
Mhm.
out like, oh, this is American based. Like the system's
I'm in the
completely
wrong
different
country.
here and there. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's so
but yeah.
true. But yeah, it's so true. Like a lot of content on the internet, it's based on the US. The basics
Mhm.
are similar, the fundamentals are similar, but the details, the trickeries that you go into, they change. So you have to make sure you apply the correct strategy based on where you're investing, right?
Yeah.
So coming a bit forward to the years, like fast forwarding, like what do you do these days, or what kind of investments, because this is the investment talks. So what kind of investment tools you use, and let's start at what kind of investments you make, like real estate or any other stocks or cryptocurrency. What does your belt look like?
Yeah. Just to kind of hit on the last thing we're talking about there. I remember I posted on social media there saying, I'm going to do a 401k. And then I got
Hmm.
like people and family saying, wow, that's a long race. You should, hopefully you're training for that really well. But like, 401k is an investment for the US, kind of making a joke about it. So it just really shows
Right.
Canadians don't really know much about the US and the different programs and stuff they have, which, you don't need to know. So why would you? But yeah,
Hmm.
move forward to today. I've dabbled in a little bit of everything. I've done multiple different types of real estate strategies, anywhere from long-term rentals to short-term rentals. We've done that. We've done um, students. We've done basically majority um, of the different ones you can do, but that's their main focus. It's just real estate. It's nice because you can control it. I'm
Yeah,
not, if the market goes down, I can hold on to it. I've locked in my rate for the 5 years or whatever. I'm not too
yeah.
worried about it. You don't see that everyday fluctuation. Like I just topped up the RSP that I had to pay back for the first time home buyers. And then,
Right.
I buy something, and then next thing I know, I haven't looked at this account since last year. Next thing I know, I'm looking at it today. Oh, what's it at tomorrow? Even though it's only like a thousand
One day.
dollar investment to pay back the RSP, it's like, I'm looking at it all the time when, you don't need to be, and it's just kind of adds another layer of stress, I feel like.
Hmm.
Whereas in real estate, you can't see those values every day, so it's kind of more peace of mind, I find. But you do get those emails or phone calls, something's happened, but
Hmm.
it's rare, or you can hire that out as well. You can't really hire out someone to look at your stock portfolio and tell you it's up or down.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. I agree. You get more control um, for your investments in real estate, and I find it too. And for me, I like to diversify, so I do a little bit of everything, like real estate, also stocks, even cryptocurrency. That's a different conversation for sure,
Yeah.
but but I like to diversify, and I love your point that you tried a lot of different strategies in real estate too, because there's so much to do, right? You mentioned about smaller like fix and flips, student rentals, and even multifamilies. So, but I know I've been following you from a while, so I know you do a lot of work in fix and flip and renovations. You have a lot of experience on that, and would like to talk a bit more about that sector and how did you get into flipping houses and doing these renovations, because this is not easy, right? You have to understand the trade-offs, the market insights, how to deal with uh, the supplies, the construction work, the contractors, and that's not for everyone,
Mhm.
because those are different people, right? You are an educated person, you know that you are an investor, you know what you're looking for, but those people, they are just working for their job. So it's very very difficult to deal with those people, because sometimes they are old, they don't have the proper technology, they don't understand the terminology. So going back, like how did you get started into this flipping business, and how did you learn about this stuff?
Yeah, I feel like the best way to kind of get started, especially for flipping, is if you're able to, buy a fixer upper and make that your primary residence. You're living in there during the renovations. There's a lot less risk that way. You got to pay for somewhere to live, and if you're able to fix it up and live through that, that's definitely a huge learning experience there, and it minimizes the risk so much. You can slowly do things over the time. You can learn to do it yourself. So you kind of have expectations on how long something should take, because they should be way quicker than you if you don't have if you don't have experience. And it
Yeah.
just you really learn the process that way. That's how we started. We bought a house. We didn't intend to fix and flip it, but we intended to fix it up. We bought like a
Okay.
1970s home. It had like the shag carpets, the green carpet, had the red carpet, like the long pile, like needs to be mowed weekly kind of thing. Like, and it had like the fancy wallpaper that had kind of like my
Wallpaper,
it
the
has like the
flowery.
leaves and the plants, and it's like 8 feet high, the whole wall.
Hmm.
We ended up taking that wall down to expand the kitchen, open concept. But
Hmm.
yeah, starting out, like that's what I would do is find a fixer upper, move into it, and slowly renovate it.
Right.
And then from there, you can hire guys to come in and help you, and they can kind of teach you, and then you can kind of keep an eye on them. And then if it works out with your own house, you can give them a little bit more work, and then eventually, when you go and buy another home, you have a little bit more trust there, and you can have them renovating that one for you.
Mm. Yeah, I love it, because for these kind of investments like fixer uppers, you said you're also living there, right? So you can
Mhm.
kind of learn from the renovations work, from the contractors, and see if there's something you can also help and contribute to make the project, to bring it to the finish line faster, and also get a taste of it, right? If it is for you, because it's not for
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah, it takes a lot of skill and a lot of patience too. And this is the thing with renovations, it comes with experience, like you said. You have to start from the small side and then see if it's for you, and then if it makes sense, just kind of repeat it, go a bit bigger in the next one. That's what I would
Yeah.
do too. And so what does your ideal flip deal look like the condition, the price, the market? What How do you assess it?
Yeah. I mean, the ideal flip would be, especially if it could be your primary residence, because then you can get it tax free, which is huge. That's another big reason for your first one to be your primary residence. You know, if you could do one every few years to kind of keep CRA,
Mhm.
off your back, space them out a little bit. That's a huge way to get started too, is you get all that tax-free capital and such a huge bonus so that you
It's
can roll
huge.
into the next ones and the next ones. Um, but yeah, our parameters for flips now, we're looking to purchase in the price range typically like 100,000 to like maybe mid low twos, and then we're looking to sell high threes to low fours. Um, we want to stay under like the $500,000 range, which might seem crazy depending on, where you live, but the
Mhm.
outskirts of Ottawa, within like an hour, 2 hours, there's still lots of properties that are for sale that are below those thresholds. Like we did a 2022 new build, the one that you actually looked at as well. Um,
Yeah,
and we
in
flipped that
Williamsburg.
one. We sold
Yeah.
for like mid threes. Like, you can't buy that anywhere, but it's in the middle of nowhere, and that's kind of what the price is. It's like mid threes for like essentially a newer build, which is crazy.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So you focus mostly on the secondary and tertiary markets. You do not
Yeah.
like to go into the primary markets.
Yeah, we're not huge fans of the primary markets just because like I don't like being in traffic, and it's kind of more selfish than anything. I'm not a huge fan of getting involved with like the big city. It's harder to deal with and work with them, I find. Whereas working in the smaller places, I already know some of the people that work with the city. It's always the same inspector that you get. So you kind of get an idea, how easy they are to work with or
Yeah,
not, which can also be a motivator on getting a place too.
yeah, and I also believe there's less competition. Like if you go to the bigger primary markets, there's a lot of people eyeing there and finding deals, doing transactions there. But if you shift a bit, like in the secondary and tertiary ones, there's less competition. Even the people are, I guess, more available and more friendly, I'd say, like the contractors and everyone, because they would be willing to work there. That could be a different challenge if the market is a bit remote, and like you have to transport your contractors and renovation team there. That could be one of the challenge. But other than that, like secondary tertiary markets, the price point would also be lower as compared to the primary markets.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it does make a lot of sense to go there, but you have to do the research, right? Because you yourself live in a secondary market, I'd say. So
Yeah,
you,
definitely. So
you
we're
get
we're
an
kind of more.
advantage.
I grew up in these areas too, so I've pretty much been to all these towns. I know them all, so that helps a lot. So typically we go and we do our research. We figure out, how much the renovation is going to be, what we think it's going to sell for. But then I also, go to my realtor and get them to run a CMA, which is a current market analysis, so they can determine what they think it'll be worth whenever we go to list it based off of our previous projects and kind of finishes that we do. So this just kind of gives me kind of like a backup. Like, I think it's going to be worth 300,000. They say it's going to be worth 300,000. So I know, this is likely what we're probably going to end up selling for. Because sometimes running the numbers yourself, you might get a little excited, you might push them a little bit, or you might keep them lower than what it would actually be worth, so you don't put in a bid high enough to get the house. So having that
Mhm.
backup from the experienced realtor and making sure that your numbers are close to theirs. And if it's not close, maybe I will do some more research to see, why there's discrepancies between. our two numbers and then work from there.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about numbers, I like it. I like it. We're moving to numbers now because about the numbers, like you said, the price point you like it under. Ideally, you would like it under like 200K, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
under 200K typically. A lot of the projects we're doing now are usually like 100K renos. So that kind of gets us in that 300K mark on resale, mid threes, like low fours. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of the renovations end up being like more than you think, especially when it comes to like electrical. We've been getting hit on that quite a bit for the last few projects,
Yeah.
just because you can't really see what's been done until you start opening up some of the walls. A lot of the times a homeowner goes and, they attach some wires, they're threaded in behind, or it's an old wire. It's next thing you know, oh, the panel's not big enough, or
Yeah.
there's
You
usually
start
something with
opening stuff
electrical you
and
don't think about, or even like the mast on the outside of the house. We've had to replace two of those and like your electrical meter as well, and it's like, well, that's a big cost, but so now we
yeah.
kind of have a higher electrical budget. And it's nice to get the electrician in beforehand if you can, so they can kind of give you a better idea. But a lot of the times it's a general range because they don't know until they open.
Yeah, that's what they, because they don't want to take it on them, right? They don't want to commit
Yeah.
something and then you go back to them. So that's a bit of a challenge too. Once you start opening up things, you keep finding stuff, and at one point you'd probably realize just tear it all down and do a full gut
Yeah,
job, right?
unfortunately. But and then it helps with the resale, I guess you can say like a lot has been updated. Um, but yeah, we're sticking to the lower price points to kind of give
Hmm.
us a backup plan. If we need to, we can kind of pivot and move into a long-term rental.
Hmm.
And most of the time we can like break even with these if we had to hold it for, a year or two or until they decide to move out. But that's like
Right.
really a backup plan. It's hard when you freshly renovate a place, get it real nice. You weren't planning to have it as a rental because the
Yeah.
finishes are typically a little bit nicer. You got the quartz, you got the higher end fixtures and stuff.
Hmm.
It's hard to rent that out. And then, a year or two later when they move out, have to go back and fix some things. And it's nice to sell it as a brand new product,
Yeah.
but
It's
we do
also
have
hard
that backup.
it's also hard to predict, right? With the market cycle going on,
Mhm.
everything like so unpredictable these days. So you would plan that you would keep the property for 2 years, and then you will think what to do with it. But in 2 years, anything can happen. Like the prices could even go down, the property prices, and the rents are also, we are seeing these days that the rents are decreasing in a lot of major markets, so that could also impact your underwriting and your analysis for the deal. So you have to keep that those stuff in mind before making a decision. There are always surprises in the journey.
Yeah.
uh, that's the fun part of it, but it's not for everyone. Like, people could lose sleep at nights if they are into big trouble. So I think it's very important to get straight, uh, make your decisions based on the numbers and nothing else. Don't get your emotions involved. Don't see what others are doing, because social
Mhm.
media, they show something, they
Yeah.
market something, but the reality is very, very different, right? So what's your typical like turnaround time for these kind of projects, for flipping properties? What kind of timeline do you look like on
Whenever
your?
we're firing on all cylinders and we're able to go to the project often, because we flip in areas that are kind of all over the place. But whenever we're there often, we can make sure the guys are working. We'll step in and help out here and there. Like a full renovation, like gut redo, like the interior. We did one, like all new plumbing, all new electrical. We were like 2.5, almost 3 months for the reno, and that's what we're aiming for. If we can do a full reno in 3 months, then we budget another 3 months to sell it. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
takes a month to find a buyer, and then that buyer needs 2 months to
To
move
move,
in.
yeah,
So
to sort
typically
out
we
their
run,
financing and everything.
yeah,
They
it can
also.
take a while. Sometimes they have to sell their house too. This is why we like to stay in the lower price point because we can target first-time home buyers. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have to typically deal with the clause they got to sell their house first. We're already in that entry point where a first-time home buyer can see it and then they'd be like, "Yep, I give my 2 months notice, I'm ready to move in." Or like they can just move in so much quicker. Some of them are still living at home and they're ready
Yeah,
to get their own place now.
yeah. Everyone's situation is different, and you don't know what you're gonna get into. So it's always good to keep the buffer time just in
Yeah.
case things
Because it
don't go
doesn't
as.
take much to fall off track. Like I said, when we're firing on cylinders from
Yeah.
start to finish, we're 5 to 6 months. But next thing your handyman doesn't show, he disappears. There's many things that can kind of go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have to wait for the inspector to come, and the inspector comes, and then he sees something that he didn't see the time before. Then you have to go back and fix things. There's a lot of things that can put delays on the project, especially like with materials and stuff too. Like whenever we were doing it during COVID, that was kind of, you get things whenever you get them kind of thing sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So talking about the team, like you said, if the contractors don't show up, and you have to keep a tap on everyone and make sure everything is going right on time. So how do you
Mhm.
manage and organize all this stuff? And is it just one project you focus at a time, or do you simultaneously have like multiple projects going on?
Yeah, it varies quite a bit. But usually we have multiple projects on the go. So we're actually about to start 3 new flips pretty soon. We have two starting uh, mid-March here, and then we got one starting April 1st, and we have one on the market right now that we're selling. Um, but I mean, everyone we work with now has to have a smartphone. I know it seems like everyone does, but there's some older contractors out there that don't. They have the flip phone. It's like,
They keep
it's
phones.
very hard to deal with for like
Yeah.
sending photos. Like we need someone that has a little bit of a technology background
Mm-hmm.
so they can actually take photos, send them to us. Um, like you said, like some of the projects we do are like they're all over the place. The further we have some that are 2 hours from where we are,
Right.
so we can't be there all the time. So getting that photo or video showing that it's complete,
And you
and then
hate
maybe
drive. Yeah.
yeah, and then maybe we have someone else that doesn't work with them to check up on the work. Like we usually hire multiple people that don't necessarily work together, so we can have someone else double check their work as well. That's another
Mm.
good way to kind of get around that because most things look good in photos, but when you get there in person, you're like, oh,
You see the
we've all
photo.
been there. You
Yeah.
go on Realtor, you're like, wow, this house looks great. This is 10 out of 10. And you get there and it's like, oh, actually, it's like a 7 out of 10. It's not as good as it looks like.
Yeah, yeah, and also the pay, right? Because these people, like the contractors, I think you have to pay them. They prefer like more continuous payments rather than like weekly payments, or some even prefer like daily payments. So you have to make sure that their work is done up to the mark, and then you process the payment. And I'm sure you also get challenges in payments. Like some say I need cash, some would say I prefer checks. So you have to also kind of organize all that stuff
Yeah.
because you pay from your corporation, right? So how
Yeah.
that's
Payments are
another
all over
challenge.
the place. It's like you said, some people want cash, some people want check, but now that we're full time, we're doing it in a corporation, I can't just go take cash out. I have to show where that's coming from. And it doesn't really save us any money if I got to take cash out of the corp, I'd pay tax on it and then give it to them. And it just doesn't make sense. And being so far away, and like you said, some of them want payment right away. It's like, well,
Right.
I'll be there next week. It's like, well, I need cash today. Well, it's like, well, so you got to set the expectations before, you
Beforehand.
start. before you get into like the first payment. It's not like you finish the job, you get paid immediately. You know, some
Yeah.
people, these guys, they finish and then I get a text like every 20 minutes, like, I'm done. How come you haven't paid me yet? What's going on? It's like, I just haven't been on my phone for the last hour. Like,
Oh, man.
so you gotta set these expectations and talk about when they'll get paid. A lot of the times we like to do, they get paid per completed item. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, the kitchen's installed. Now here's your, 1,500 bucks or whatever for the kitchen install. Now you're
Right.
also doing trim for us. And that's like, okay, trim is halfway done. You finish the ground floor, we'll pay that part. So we
Yeah.
like to do it per job. So we're always, slightly ahead. We always like to be like a little bit ahead of the contractors, just
Yeah.
so we have that buffer room. Because sometimes these guys, they just disappear.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. You can't
but
pay
we
the
have a
full amount. Yeah.
Yeah, never pay the full amount up front. That's a good way to see them for a day or two and then they're probably gone.
Yeah. Enjoying somewhere like somewhere sunny in Florida or somewhere, or even like
Yeah,
going on vacation and spending all the money. And when they're out of it, then they show up that, okay, hey, what's the work?
yeah.
What do I need to do? Right.
We prefer to pay on Fridays too, so then they're out of money after the weekend and they're back on
After a
Monday.
week
You pay Monday, you might not see them the rest of the week.
or a week. That's strategic. I like it. Wow.
Yeah.
So about the financing and financing strategies for your projects. So I know you mentioned like you go into like this similar smaller properties like under 200K. So chances are like they need some work or significant work. They might have like major issues or structural issues sometimes. You also mentioned about like electrical. So
Mm,
that's some people, it's a challenge to get insurance for some particular types of electricals, and there are hoarder homes, a lot of things. So banks typically don't prefer financing these kind of properties based on my experience.
mm.
They would, maybe they would for one or two, but after some point they would just stop. So then I would say you'd be going to private lending, or um, getting money from the external sources, or even using your line of credits. So do you use that for your financing as well, like private lending and external sources?
Yeah. What we typically do now is y- I recommend finding a sugar daddy, I like to say. You know, we get a couple investors that we work with that have quite a bit of capital
Right.
and they're very easy to work with. Like you said, I can't go to Scotiabank and say, this house I just bought for 95,000 that doesn't have running water and the walls are ripped out, there's no kitchen. It's like they'll never finance that. There's no way.
Yeah.
And the
Mm-hmm.
amount of paperwork
It's
and
safe.
stuff you'd have to provide, by the
Mm.
time they got all the information, it's like deal's gone. Someone else already got it. So you need someone that can move quick. Because a lot of the
Quick.
times, the places that we're buying, like we're not buying with a financing condition. So this is where we like to have a backup of our, like you mentioned, like line of credits. We
Mm.
have like a ridiculous amount of line of credits. I don't know how it's over time, it's just kind of built up. We have like 13 or 14 lines of credits, HELOCs. So
Right.
we have this backup capital that we're ready to close on a place if we need to with this, but we're finding private financing at the same time. Worst case, if I
Mm.
can't get financing in time, we have that those line of credits that we can go back to buy the place. Maybe we just need a little bit more time to get the financing. But everything
Yeah.
we do now is pretty much through it's all private lending. So it's those sugar daddies that I
Sugar
mentioned.
daddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just send a couple texts. We've already done a little bit of due diligence ourselves before that off, and there's no, typically they're like, yep, we like it. Like the last one we did, we're buying for 95. We need like 125K in reno. And he's like, yep, I'll fund the whole thing. purchase price and renovations. So we're going in no money down basically for the
Hmm.
whole project, which is like we're at that level of comfort now with him. He knows that we can pay him back. Um, we had a project that took a little over 6 months, and
Okay.
like the mortgage term was only for 6 months with him. We could either extend, pay another 3 months interest, or we could just pay him back. So we just took
Right.
the line of credit money, paid him back, and then now we move on to the next one that's closing the middle of the month there. And he knows that we have backup capital to pay off the loans if we need to, if he needs to recall the money
Right.
at that 6 months term.
Because you want to keep the sugar daddies happy, right? Because you need them
Yeah.
for the future projects. So always say, do what you promise, never lose their money, even if you have to pay out of your own pocket. I think you go ahead and make them happy and make the payments. So how do you find these sugar daddies?
It's just a lot of things I just, you got to be on social media, you got to be posting things. Um, you got to post like the ups and downs too, not just everything that's good. You want to have expectations for people
Mm.
that are watching. It's not
Be
always like,
realistic. Yeah.
yeah, be realistic. People can relate to that, especially investors watching. They'll know like not everything is gonna be a-okay, but you're able to get through it. You're still buying projects. You're still going, even with the ups and downs. But yeah, posting on social media is huge. Reaching out to mortgage brokers too. A lot of mortgage brokers, they'll say they have private lenders. You go through like all this stuff, and then it's like, oh, our private lender is like Calvert Mortgages. It's like, well, that's not really a private lender. You know, they're
Yeah.
not going to fund our mortgage in, uh, I don't know, like Monkland or something, like some small town that has like a few hundred people, right? They
Yeah.
want to do bigger projects, but reaching out to local brokers and asking them if they have private lenders. Then from there, you can kind of send them, if you've done a few projects, send them your portfolio. Like, I've done this. Check out my social media. Check out my, Foster Properties Facebook page. Here's our website. You can see some flips we've done. You can see the staging. And so having like a professional website or at least a Facebook page that documents the projects that you're working on gives more peace of mind as well.
So you have to build the trust, do the work, and then show
Yeah,
your. You have to show the experience as well, that hey, I have done this. This is I can do this again. And chances are they are not very familiar with the real estate industries. Like they know the
mhm,
basics, the potential, and everything, but they are just focused on the returns, right? That they have some
yeah,
cash lying around. They want to preserve it, get good returns on it, and that's all they care for most of the times.
yeah. And these local brokers, they know local people. They know that small town, and they've been there. They're more willing to invest. Whereas
Right.
if you're talking to someone from Toronto, like these companies or Ottawa, they don't know these small little towns. They've never been there. They're less comfortable. So reaching out to these brokers, you'll pay their 1, 2% or whatever, but that's that's minor, especially with the amount of paperwork typically you don't have to do. It's usually a lot less.
Yeah. And with this cost, I want to touch base about the cost and everything. I said a bit before about the market changing, volatility,
Hmm.
and all that stuff, and the renovation costs are also increasing like day by day. Just compared to last year it would take a lot less for the renovations and material costs, even the contractor payouts, but just comparing the difference within a year, like these days it's getting much and much more expensive. Everyone, because everyone is, they can't afford, right? So the
Yeah,
contractors are charging good money, they want a premium dollar, and you have to kind of rely on their work, because you said you work in a different areas, so chances are you cannot take the same team to the different areas for different projects, right? So
hmm,
with the rising cost and the interest rates, everything going on, like, do you believe flipping and fix and flips is becoming harder in today's market, and how do you find it?
Recently, I've been finding it's actually been getting a little bit easier. I found like like a year ago, roughly, there's a lot of wholesalers and people that they weren't really providing deals because they would just take them down themselves. They were trying to flip. They were, they're like, oh yeah, like if you don't get us at this price, we're just gonna take it on. I'm like, but you guys are from Toronto. How are you gonna flip, out here? Like I know most of the guys and there's no way. But a lot of them tried, and I notice now a lot of them are wholesaling more deals um, in our markets, which is helpful for us. But I find a lot of the younger guys are trying to charge the premium, like the contractors. They're trying
Yeah.
to charge more than what some of the older guys are. Some of the older guys, they're still keeping their prices the same. They have lots of experience. They might not be as quick, but the quality of work is good. Um, there's typically like there's three things, but usually you only get two of them. You have your price, you have your quality, and you have your speed. A
Right.
lot of people say, pick two. You're not going to get all three. So we like to have the
Oh, interesting.
quality. The speed is nice, but we like to have the quality and we like to have the price. That's
Hmm.
huge.
That's important for the project because that's more aligned to your goals and your results from the flip as well, right? You can
Mhm.
compromise
Yeah,
a bit on the speed, get some delays, but the quality is very important, and price is just the
yeah.
numbers. Yeah.
Because speed, if you go speed and cost, you might have to redo it. So the speed's not there
We do.
anymore.
Yeah. So you touched a bit about on wholesalers, like, so do you usually find your deals from wholesalers, or are there any other sources for your deals, or even on market? Like, what does your deal mix look like, and how do you find them?
Yeah, most of the deals we do are off market from wholesalers. We do still buy some on market, but it's not as often. It's hard to compete sometimes with like a primary homeowner, like someone that's going to buy it and live into it. They're willing to pay more. Um, but depending on the amount of renovation it needs, a lot of the times they might not be willing to take it on, or they don't think it's as big of a project until they actually start working on it. But
Yeah.
so going on Realtor, going finding all the wholesalers you can find, getting on their email lists, getting on
Hmm.
Kijiji, setting up automatic notifications for that,
Yeah.
checking on Facebook Marketplace, reach out to realtors, ask them if they have anything coming up. You can also run Facebook ads. We buy houses cash. Um, that part I like to outsource. So like, you reach out to your realtor, ask them if they're willing to run some ads, saying that you'll buy homes, any condition kind of thing. It's just like I feel like it's perfect for a realtor. They're used to dealing with homeowners and
You
people.
already did. Yeah.
Um, I'm not very great at going in, seeing it could be a big time waster. You know what I mean? Like worst case for a realtor, they don't get the price that we need in order to flip it. They just help the person out and sell the house and they still make money. So as a
Yeah.
realtor, I feel like it's a no-brainer. You help a client out, um, or you help the homeowner out and sell their house. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, amazing. So I like what you said. Like, if you don't like something entirely, you can just delegate it to, like you said, to realtors for running the ads, right? And then they are
Mhm.
working for you. They bring leads to you. You can give them some commission, or you have the relationship with them, right? You're working with them anyways. So
Yeah,
it's a win-win, and you build up on it. So it doesn't happen in a day. You take time to find leads, generate, make the connections, take time to search off market. That's also, it takes time. So
yeah,
talking about time management, like, how do you prioritize your tasks, daily life, real estate investing? I know you do a lot of stuff even in your personal life, like you have family as well. So any specific, like, time management techniques you use that you love to share with our listeners to be more efficient in their life?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Like right now, we don't have kids or anything, so we can spend more time into our business. We can keep building it up.
Yeah.
So when we do have kids, we can, maybe delegate a little bit more and coast a little bit more until they get a little bit older, and then we can step into the business full time again. But right now, I mean, we really enjoy it too, which is another thing. Being full time, we might sleep in, uh, might sleep in a little bit, but then we might work a little bit later that night. So we have that flexibility
Yeah.
and setting time, like you said, to meet with family. Um, like we're doing projects out in like the Pembroke area as well, and we have family out there. So whenever we go out there, we might work a
Right.
little bit, but then in the evenings, we're with family. So that's a
Mm.
great way for us to stay in touch with them is, buy a house to flip out there. We can go stay with them. They like to see the projects, see the progress. So it's
Mm.
a mutual interest as well.
Yeah.
Another thing we've been working on is we've been trying to be more like on, I don't know if you ever heard of like Monday.com.
Yeah.
It's like an app to try and keep things organized. We've been trying to get more and more on that so we can always check to see like what's going on. But it's difficult. A lot of the times we're still kind of writing things down, what needs to be done. Um, but yeah, that's something that we're trying to work
Make a
on is
list.
getting it,
Yeah.
getting the list, make sure we update it. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and prioritize it, right? Because chances are you will not get done with your list in the day. You'll have some things remaining that you couldn't finish because there were some things that came up that you didn't plan, right?
Yeah, always, always.
So that always happens with me too. Like there's so for me, I'm like I make a list for like let's say 10 tasks a day, and even if I finish like top three ones for the day, I feel like it was a
Yeah,
productive day because I knew there were a lot of other stuff that I did too that I didn't plan in the first place.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
what I like with Monday. Like we can put like
Monday.
my stuff and then my wife's stuff, and then you can like do like critical, like I got to do this today, and then you can
Hmm.
see like what we're both working on and check it off. But it's hard.
Yeah.
There's always something to do, like you said. Something always pops up. You gotta do it, especially with tenant stuff. There's
Yeah.
lots that could happen. Like we just had a huge water leak at one of our properties. Like the main line outside of the
Water line.
house
Yeah.
burst,
Oh my
and the
God.
tenant sends me a photo. They're like, "There's a lot of water outside." I'm like, "What do you mean there's a lot of water outside? Like that isn't. Well, what am I gonna do about that? Like the snow's melting, I guess. Like,
The snow. Yeah.
and then I like actually I stop and look at the photos. I was like, "Oh my God! Like there's like a lake in the back."
It's
And then,
crazy.
you're dealing with that for the day, trying to get people there. And then they're digging up the road, trying to find where that little curb stop is so they can turn off the water. And, I don't
Hmm.
remember where it is. We've done so many properties. I don't remember where that little valve is outside.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And it's far
there's
away.
always,
You're not nearby, right? So you can't just go in 5-10 minutes and take a look at it.
yeah. And the snow is also like 6 feet
Oh,
high
crazy.
everywhere. That was after the big snowfall we had. So I'm on
It
Google
always
Maps trying to
happens.
zoom in at
Yeah,
different years trying to find it in the grass. But anyway,
always happens on the worst days. You can imagine, like you're busy doing some work and you want to be focused, and then you get a phone call, you get a message, and you're like, "Oh shit, I need to look into this now. I have to leave everything and go into it." That's part of the role, right? That's part
hmm
of being your own boss, as you
yeah,
said.
like right
Yeah.
now we're self-managing everything. But in the future, we'll eventually get like we'll hire someone or we'll get a company to manage our projects and our
Companies. Yeah.
rentals. Just because like well, one phone call like that or one email, even if it's just a little thing, sometimes can just kind of throw your day off.
Yeah. Amazing. So for someone looking to get started into flipping business, and you said a good way to start is fix and flip. So what's the what's the best way to get started into it, like without making costly mistakes? Would you recommend like something like doing it with someone who has done it before, or reading some particular book, or watching a video, or just go into it, go with the flow? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, you can learn a lot through YouTube for sure. I mean, anything you want to learn how to do, how to lay
There's
flooring, how
some.
to do it's on YouTube, right? Like everything's on there. It's insane. But I still recommend, if you're able to, move into the property, renovate it, slowly renovate it, hire people to come in, maybe you see how they do things, learn that way. You don't necessarily need to learn how to do everything because you probably won't even have time if you're working full time anyway to be able to step in, but just seeing how they do it is huge. You can learn the process, you live in the process, you're going to learn all the steps, and it
Yeah,
just reduces the risk so much if it's your own home. If you
yeah,
end up spending a little bit more, maybe you stay there a little bit longer until you sell it and buy something else for the market to increase. You have that flexibility. You're not forced to make this extra, 3,000 a month payment. House isn't selling, you're over budget, your own house. It's, it's fine.
so yeah, so enroll in YouTube University and
Yeah,
be
enroll in
studying
YouTube
there.
University.
Never
You'll be
pass
in
out.
bed watching the videos. How to level a floor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot of content. I love YouTube. There's a lot to learn, and people are like amazing, posting such valuable information, and we are
even
blessed to
now,
be,
I'm still watching the videos. Like I'm
right.
still watching the videos, and then I'll have a contractor come in and see how he does it. Like, oh, he's doing it just like the video, okay. Or maybe he does it a different way. And then I ask, well, what if we did something like this? He might
Oh,
say,
I
oh, I
never
never thought
thought
about
about
that.
it. Yeah.
Or he might say, oh, I've tried that before and it doesn't work. So,
Yeah,
it gives you a little bit more knowledge too when you're talking to some of these people, so you don't seem as fresh.
I love it. I love it. So we have an investor toolbox section where I ask that you give us like three application tips, tools like books or resources you would recommend for someone to grow their business. Like I know you mentioned one was Monday.com. So any other like two or three tips you would like to give, or books, any resources?
Yeah. Um, yeah, Monday is a big one. That's keep you organized.
Yeah.
Having your bank app so you can send e-transfers. That's another big one.
Just to
Um,
check if you can afford this task as well, right? I need to make
yeah.
sure.
Um, yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there's so many books out there. I actually only started reading flipping books like late last year. I never even thought about
Really?
it. I don't know why. It's just I've always just read real estate books, but they don't really get into the details.
Yeah.
Um, there's a Canadian guy, I think it's Mark Loffer or something. He has like an old flipping book.
Hmm.
I haven't finished it yet, but it kind of outlines the process. Maybe it takes 2 weeks to do this, 2 weeks for that, or whatever. So that can kind of give you a guideline. But yeah, I mean, just get your
There's
hands
so
on
many.
as much information as you can.
Yeah.
Podcasts when you're driving or working out. Um, you know, go to that YouTube University, check that out before you start doing a project, see how it's going to be done. Um, I don't know. There's just so much information. Reach out to other investors too.
Yeah.
Facebook is huge. I mean, that's another huge app I recommend. See what other people are up to.
Yeah.
You see them renovating, maybe ask them like, how did this go? What do you expect or what do you pay to get a kitchen installed?
Yeah.
Or which company do you use? It's like, oh, there's so many different things that you can learn from other people, reaching out to them, maybe booking a quick meeting,
Yeah.
10, 15 minutes, like a call like this, you can learn so much.
Yeah. And listening to this podcast, right? That's part of
Yeah,
it.
that's in there too.
Amazing. So the next segment, Brandon, is a fun one. It's called a myth or fact. So here I'll give you a statement, and it could be a myth or a fact. You have to make your own judgment, and you can share us why you think what's what. So are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So the statement is like hiring the cheapest contractor saves you a lot of money. The cheapest available quote.
I'm gonna say myth.
Myth? Why is that?
Like I said, um, not all the time, but a lot of times the cheap guys, especially if they ask for money up front, um, the work's not going to get done, quality's not going to be there, and you might have to get someone else in, a guy that's more expensive, that's going to charge more now in order to complete the job the right way and basically redo it maybe.
Okay, so
We've been
you
there.
are you're paying less upfront, but in the long term, you have to pay again to some other guy, right, to do the
Yeah,
stuff
you'll
again,
have to go through 10 cheap guys to find one good one, which is expensive.
which adds up. Oh,
Yeah.
love it, love it. So we're just gonna conclude it soon. Just one or two more questions, like
Hmm.
talking about the future. We know you have quite an amazing journey, and it's remarkable what you have gone and what you have done through. And I can't wait to see where you're going forward. So I'd like to ask you, like, where do you see yourself in like upcoming 3 to 5 years? Are you planning to scale or diversify or shift into something else, or keep doing this and scale up? What's your plan look like for the future?
Yeah, so for the future, we'll still be flipping. Um, we still want to grow the flipping business. We don't have any full-time employees. We just hire like independent contractors. But we're getting busy enough where we always have something on the go. So we are looking at hiring some employees full-time. That should help keep the costs down too. Um, you hire a contractor, maybe it's $200 to install a door, or pay a guy
Mhm.
25, 30 an hour, and it takes them 2 hours to do the same door.
Yeah.
So this can really help keep costs down. It's a lot easier to manage. Um, I don't have to get a new quote for this one little thing or whatever. Guys paid by the hour. You'll just do it. You'll just get it taken care of. So
Mhm.
hiring employees, maybe two employees full time. We are looking at doing that, and we want to keep ramping up the flipping business. But like, you don't need to go crazy. You can do a few flips a
Yeah.
year, maybe cherry pick the flips that you do and make quite a bit of money and still keep that work-life balance.
Mm.
We also want to keep getting more rentals too, to kind of have more of that passive income, as
Yeah.
passive as rentals could be. But it's a lot more passive than doing a full gut and flip, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. It's more time
so
involving. Yeah.
as we build and build more capital, that's kind of the plan is to buy some more flips. So if we do take our foot off the gas from doing the flips, we have more income from the rentals coming in, and we have guys on staff, so it doesn't take as long to find workers to do things. Their timeline is our timeline. Um, but yeah, that's kind
Amazing.
of what we're looking at in the future.
Amazing. That sounds like a solid plan. You're building up on what you already have and scaling the business. That's this is phenomenal. So thank you so much for sharing the amazing, valuable insights you have. Amazing journey. I'm sure our listeners would have learned a lot from this one. And how can you mention about Facebook and social media? So how can our audience connect with you and learn more about your work, get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can check us out on Facebook. We're on Instagram as well, and we have a website where you can see like the staging we do and some of the flips. But a
Hmm.
big one is just social media. You can follow along on Facebook or Instagram. I usually do stories pretty well every day, kind of give you an insight of what we're doing. Not always real estate. Sometimes it's just, dog. food photos, whatever. Kind of what we're up to. I try and post there at least every couple of days, so people can follow along.
Being authentic, right? That's part of it. What you
Yeah.
said.
And
Amazing.
if you
Yeah.
just want
So
the real estate, you can go on our Foster Properties Facebook page, and we just post real estate stuff there.
okay, perfect. I'll share the links and the social media handles, like in the summary or in the description box. And they're the listeners, the aspiring flippers, the real estate investors, and the sugar daddies. Everyone can go
Yeah, the
and
sugar daddies. Yeah,
find your information, right?
yeah. We're always looking for more sugar daddies
yeah.
or
Amazing.
mommies.
Or mommies. Yeah, we don't mind. we don't mind. Perfect. So that concludes our episode, Brandon. Thank you so much. It was such a fun one, man. I love talking with you, learned so much myself, and would thank you again for taking the time off. I know you're a busy guy, so thanks again for taking the time and sharing everything you have done today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun. Nice talking with you again.